Good morning. Thank you for joining me this morning for my for our Xero invoice and invoice and bills webinar. We did a couple of months ago. I did the Xero back to basics. So this is just the next step up from that, with the covering sort of invoicing and bills and the functionality around that. If you'd like a copy of the back to basics, just flip me an email and I'll send you through a link to view it. So I hope everyone's enjoying this nice, slightly rainy morning. And yeah, we'll crack into it. It's a good time to sit in front of the computer. So let me just share my screen. Alrighty. So we're in the demo company. Everybody's got access to the demo company. So if you hit your little drop down up in the top here, and hit change organization and just search demo, that'll you can get into it. You can have them play. You can do whatever you want in here. It resets every 30 days, so you don't have to worry about breaking anything. You can test things and try and have a go at making invoices and putting bills in, attaching things and all sorts, without worrying about breaking anything. So I'll start with invoicing. So you've got a few ways you can do a new invoice. You can plus up here with any of these things, so invoice, or you can go new sales invoice from the dashboard, or from the business drop down we go invoices and then new invoice up here, and this is where you can do a credit note or send statements, etc. So we'll go over those in a minute. So new invoices, so there's a couple of different options. There's invoicing that looks like this is the, I guess, traditional invoicing look, and then there's new invoicing, which is a little button down the bottom there, which is a slightly different look. Up to you which you prefer. We'll go through and do one in each, so you can have a look at which one. You can try both. Doesn't make any difference at the end of the day as to how your invoice looks to the customer. I prefer the classic one, but that's just me. So whichever one you prefer is all good. So the two, so that's for the invoices too. I'll just say Fred Smith, getting real original. Add as a new contact. So the date, that's generally the date of your invoice. That could be today's date, or if you're doing invoices for the end of the month in advance, you can change that date there. The due date, you can hit the little drop down and choose the date, or you can put, say, +7 if you want it to be 7 days, or +21 if you wanted it to be 21 days. Hit your tab button and it will automatically work out what that is. So a couple of options there. You can also set a due date for each in your invoice settings, so we can have a look at that shortly. So if you want all your invoices to be set on the 20th of the following month, then we can set that in the invoice settings. Invoice number, that's just a rolling default. I wouldn't bother about changing that. Sorry, my words are all mixed up this morning. And your reference, it's up to you whether you want to reference. It doesn't really mean anything. It's probably more for the customer side. If you were doing an invoice to people or to a company that had a few different people doing the ordering, you might want to put the person's name in there. If you had a PO number, like a purchase order number or something, you might want to put that in there. If you're creating an invoice from a credit note, from a quote, that will default to the quote number. So it's up to you if you want to use that or not. Depends on the circumstance. If you've got different branded invoices with different terms or anything like that on them, this is where you can choose which one you want to use. So in the demo company, they've got a couple of different brandings set up. So if you're using items, so like this is a good idea if you have regular things that you're going to invoice for. So like if you put labor on, if you put travel, or if you have items that you regularly sell, you can set them up as items in here with standard pricing. So you just have to choose the quantity when you're creating the invoice. So we'll just do one of these. So all the stuff is set up in the background. So you could just choose the quantity. So like you say, okay, this person bought 30 of those and done and dusted. Or you can put in a description of what it is. And the account code will default generally to your most used sales account. So you may need to choose that, change that. If you've set up an item, you can choose which account code it's going to. So that sort of saves a bit of time there. And up here is that you can choose whether you want it to be tax inclusive or exclusive. So that's these amounts here. So if you're quoting, if you're sort of going, right, it's, you know, $5 a unit plus GST, then you can change this to exclusive. And that $19.95 will be the GST exclusive amount, and it will add GST at the bottom. Otherwise, it will assume that the $19.95 includes GST. So it's up to you how you prefer that as well. That's another setting that you can set in the back end. So once you're happy with it, you can preview it. So it'll give you a little preview of what it will look like on a desktop or on a mobile. Give you a little summary. So if someone's looking at it, that's what they'll see. Yeah, this is where you can go, oops, I didn't choose the right. It's different. Not sure quite what they've done there, but this one is projects. That one's got an actual orange on it. So you can just click through and have a look here if you've got different themes and things like that. So like if you're selling a different type of product or a different, you know, as a different type of service, then you might set up different themes. So like for me, I've got a different theme set up for my packages. So the monthly invoice is set up on one theme, and then anything outside of that is set up with a slightly different with wording and stuff on it. So I can pick and choose which invoice I send. So once you're happy with it, you can just hit approve. And then there's another option to preview. You can print the PDF there. You can copy it to another, you know, if you're going to do this for a few different people. But the most important thing that is very easy to miss once you hit approve is to hit email. So it's very easy to forget that step. I've done it myself a few times and gone, why isn't that person paid? Oh, no, I didn't actually send it to them. It was very important to make sure you hit that button. If your contact is set up in the back end, so you can give them the name in there, and then you can add some details here. So you can add their postal address and stuff. It does look nice when you add their address and things on the invoice rather than just their name. So worth taking a bit of time to do that. And you can add their email address there. Or if you're not going to bother with that other stuff, you can just add their email address here. Once you've added it in here, provided you only add one, it will add that against the contact for next time. I recommend ticking on include PDF attachment. That means if people on the other end are using, say, HubDoc or Receipt Bank or something like that, or they're wanting to forward this straight into their Xero or something like that, it just makes it easier for them. So, or if they're people that like to print things out, then you've given them a PDF copy. So just, yeah. Cool. So, yep, so once that's sent, it's gone, it's done, it'll sit there waiting to be paid. And once the payment comes in, hopefully the person's used a nice tidy reference and you can just match it off. Too easy. So we'll do one in new invoicing, just so you can see the difference. Switch here. So we'll choose spread again. Don't worry about an invoice. We'll leave that blank because that will autofill. There we go. See, it's autofill to the next one, which is number 45. You can do the same in here in terms of the pluses and things like that. This is where you can choose whether you want to give the option to pay via an online payment. system. So that could be PayPal, it could be Stripe, it could be Go Cardless. There's lots of other ones that you can set up. So you can set them up from in here, or you can set them up from your collections, payment collections, and invoice settings. People do get paid faster, or people do tend to pay faster if they can just click and pay through on their credit card or something, but there are fees involved. So I guess it's balancing that up. Currency, New Zealand dollar, so that'll be defaulted. There's your branding theme again. Here's your tax inclusive or exclusive. So we can choose your items. So let's sell this one some golf balls. There's defaulted to sales. The region is set up in this demo company as a tracking category. So if you have multiple different sort of areas that say you had a branch in the North Island and a branch in the South Island, you might set up North and South so that you can keep track of what costs and what sales, etc., are to each. Different applications for that. So just give me a call if you think that might be applicable. And then we can choose our freight again. And there we go. So that one's all set up down the bottom there. You can add notes as well to invoices. There's a little note saying spoke to, Tommy at Fred's business, he did the order, etc. Or please send to a different address or things like that. Whatever you need, you can put notes down in the bottom there. And then you can just show them down there. So it shows you when it was created and things like that. And if you did have a note, say, that pops down in the bottom there. So that might be handy if you're having problems with an invoice. You can keep notes of when you've called them or anything like that. Or if you've changed the invoice, you could make a note as to why you've changed it. So that probably won't appear. Cool. That's pretty similar between new and old. It's just a different look. It's up to you. And one of the benefits here, I guess, is you can hit approve and email. So that will just send it straight off. We don't have an email address in here, so we'll just cancel that. But attached PDF is defaulted there. I wouldn't bother sending yourself a copy. Bit of a waste of email space. Up to you though. Cool. And now those just sit there. So if we go back to invoices, waiting payment. So we've got two here for Fred Smith. So once those come in, I'll just clear up on the bank rec. So we can add expected payment dates and things. So if you've spoken to them and said, oh, they're going to pay on the, on the 21st when they get all their money in, you can make a note and say, called is going to pay a couple of days later or whatever, if you've made some sort of arrangement. Cool. So we'll just jump back a little step as well and create a quote, and I can show you how that pushes through to an invoice. There we go. And quotes. Do new quote. Cool. So we've got Fred. You can add a title and a summary of whatever. So if this was, say, a trade type job, you could set up a title for, build new deck, a little summary of what you're going to do. And then you can just put labor, materials, etc. as the lines down here. We don't really need it for this one, so we'll go expiry date. So there's some suggested dates, or we can pick another date. Say a week. Gives you a quote number. Reference could be again that name or what have you. Tax exclusive. Generally with quotes, you'd probably want to do them tax exclusive. So buy 500 golf balls. And 6 t-shirts. There we go. So those are defaulted to our accounts and things like that. If you're going to give a discount, you can put that in there. So if you buy that many, you get a 10% discount. So terms, you can set these up in the invoice settings. We'll just click through. So this is the invoice settings. You can get to them through the drop down settings, invoice settings. And this is payment services. So that's where you can set up any links to Stripe or PayPal or anything like that. So people can use those options to get paid. Sorry, I'm looking over here because this is where my screen is. It's got everything on it. So we've got invoice settings. So you can see the 3 different themes they've set up in here. So this is a templated one, a docx template. So that's possible if you want to have different things on your invoice, or if you want to lay it out slightly differently. You can set a new one here. So that's where you do the docx. So that's a bit more complex to set up, but it is definitely doable. So let me know if you want something like that. Otherwise, you can just do standard. So you give it a name for your invoice, whatever type. I guess it's whatever's going to differentiate that invoice from the other type. But we'll have a quick look in this one. So this is where you can upload your, change your logo, preview it, remove it, etc. So if we hit edit, name, etc. So all the words and stuff as they appear, font sizes, things like that, you can change all of that if you want to. Most people don't, but it's totally personal preference. And you can tick on and off these things. This is where your PayPal payment services come in. So this is where your payment terms. So this is where you put your bank account number, a thank you, whatever, a personal note, or a note about when the job will commence, and then quotes down here. So this could be 50% deposit, a note about it being a 50% deposit. You can have more details, terms of engagement, or you could have set up a docx template which attaches your terms of engagement to your quotes. So that is recommended for sort of the trades that are doing more complex quotes, especially with the changes of material prices and things. It's a good idea to have some detailed quotes in here about, notes in here about, your prices aren't 100% fixed and what you'll do if they're not, and things like that. But if you need something like that, let me know. There's definitely people out there that do that for a living, so it's a good idea to make sure that's done properly. Appears, and then up here is your contact details. So those appear under the logo on the invoice. So you can put whatever you want in here: address, email address, phone number, etc. So cool. Go back to the quote. So yeah, so this will default with whatever's on your invoice settings, but because these are done in there, nothing's come through. And then you can just hit send, and that will ask you to put my email address in for. Cool. So that's sent. So we've got a couple of options here. You can, if you have a phone call with the person, you can say, yeah, let's go ahead, or we'll do it, and just mark it as accepted. Otherwise, ideally, the person will get the email. So I've just clicked on the link in the email now. They'll get this, they'll see it, and they'll go, yep, cool, perfect. They can make a comment, they can decline it, or ideally, they'll just accept it. Hit accept, and it goes, yep, cool. And then we do a bit of a refresh here. And it shows as accepted. So from here, you can just go create invoice, that mark is invoiced, and we're away. So now we're back in new invoicing, and we're in invoices. So we've got a draft invoice. Go for here, it's pretty straightforward. All we just need to do is approve an email if we're happy with it. If there's anything we need to add or remove or what have you, or update, change quantities, can there. Ideally, you do that in a quote and get them to accept the quote, the updated quote. See, as I said, the reference number has defaulted to the quote number. So from here, we just hit approve an email. Oh, and it's given us an error because this black t-shirt is a tracked inventory item, means we can only sell 5. And then we'll just put so we'll just drop that to 5 because we can only sell 5 because we've only got 5 in stock. And we'll just make a note there saying that 55 will be invoiced when the stock arrives. We can approve and email that. There we go. That's happy with us now. And just hit send. So that's pretty straightforward. That's the process sort of from quote to invoice. If you needed to do a credit note, we can do that from here. We can do that from an invoice. So we can say, oh, Fred's decided he doesn't need these ones anymore. So we can go create and apply credit. So that's the little drop downs there. So here you've got a few different options there, edit, email, etc. Create and apply credit. So this will create a separate credit note. It will generally put it back against the original code that it was off against. So if you were to write something off because of, a bad debtor, sorry, you would change that to bad debts. I've got a code for that in here. Generally, you'd get in touch if you were going to do that anyway, because we want to make sure the date was right. But yeah, the account you might change. Most of the time, you'll just credit it back against the same account. Credit note number will just default. Branding, it looks very similar to an invoice, and it takes the full amount. So if you did want to credit the whole amount, you could just do a credit for 56. Or if you just wanted to do 5 of them, then we'll just hit approve there. And it'll take us back to the invoice, and you can see it's got a credit of 28 and there's now only 43 due. So that's how a credit note would apply. Cool. So that's kind of the main thing with invoices. You can add attachments as well. If I can find it in this new invoicing, as I say, I don't use it very often. I'll go back to the original one that I did. This one here. Switch to classic. So in here, you've got this little guy here. So this is your general logo for files. So from here, you can add from file library. So your file library is your basically a little separate module that sits with any files you've sent into Xero, or you can upload files. So you can just, from here, you could just drag an invoice from somewhere, or a spreadsheet, or whatever you wanted to attach. So this was something you were sending for like a contracting job, and you wanted to attach a summary of your hours, you could attach a spreadsheet using this little guy here. Just make sure when you do email the invoice, I'll show add from file library. Oh, no, sorry, wrong one. Upload. So I want to add that. Let's say that's a timesheet. When I hit email, just make sure you tick on include files as attachments. That will make sure that those files go as attachments to your invoice. Cool. I think that's kind of the main invoicing. Oh, the invoicing, the only other thing was the invoicing settings, which was in this advanced financial settings. So this is where you can set your tax defaults. So this is for sales. You can base it on the last sale, or you can just always do sales as tax inclusive or tax exclusive. Same with purchases. So it's a good idea to make sure that each time you're doing an invoice, it's consistent with the tax settings. And within each contact, you do have the ability to change the default. Where's old Fred? Edit in here. You do have the ability to change, so you can put his name and stuff so that it comes up properly on the invoice. And in here, sales defaults. So you can select the sales account. So say he's always Xero and he's 20th of the following. If you've got a few people that have different default sort of settings, you can set them in here. And that means whenever you create an invoice for him, that will be the settings that come up. You can set credit limits as well. So if you've got a customer that you're like, right, you're only allowed $1,000, it won't let you send an invoice if it's going to take it over that amount. So then they have to pay some of their bills, pay some of their overdue bills before it'll send another one. Just a bit of a, a check, I guess, to make sure that you're not giving people credit when they're not actually paying their bills. Cool. All right, so and move on from invoices to bills. So same thing with bills. You've got new bill, you've got plus bill up here, or you've got bills to pay. So we won't worry about purchase orders because not many people use them. If you do want a little run through on purchase orders, you can just get in touch. So new bill. So there's no new bill or anything like this. It all just looks like this. There's no classic and new bills. There's no version that's newer. So here we can, it looks very similar, as you can see, to invoicing. So we'll just say, we can put in the exact date here. Reference, so that'll be your invoice number. So say for Spark, it's probably a long one. You can just put, so we've got Fred's mobile, and then we put we can split it as we go. So we go, right, we've got Fred's mobile's on there, and we've got our home internet on there, so we can just split that now. We can do 50-50 for our home office. So that's cool. It's already all done during the year. And once again, you've got this little guy here. So this is the files. So we'll go quickly into the files inbox. It's just in here. So in the drop down, it's files. Oh, I don't need a tab. So in here, you've got this unique email address. So you can forward things into there. We can upload directly. So I can just upload like that. Or I'll show you what happens if I forward. If you're going to forward a file, I would recommend deleting out all the body of the text and just forward body of the email and just forward the PDF attachment. There we go. I've just sent that quote or sent that invoice we got for Fred before. And so it takes a few minutes to come in. but this is a way you can keep track of your files. You can put bank statements in here. You can put anything really. Just be aware that anyone who's got access to Xero can see the files. So if there's any confidential files and things like that, then I wouldn't just putting them in here. Alrighty, so that one, bit of a refresh, see if that email's come in. There we go. So that one's come in via email just now, and it's just come in as the PDF. So that's our email, our invoice from Fred. So then if we are putting this in, say we'll just pretend that email from Fred was our for Fred. So we can go add from file library, click it on, add one file. So that means that that copy of that invoice is always attached here. So if you ever were looking for this transaction and you wanted a copy of the invoice, you've always got it there. Handy, especially for the likes of, say, like Noel Leeming and Harvey Norman, things that give you the thermal receipts that fade. You can take a picture and attach a copy, and then you've always got it in the right place. Also handy for you from a year-end financial perspective, because it means that I don't have to ask you for a whole bunch of invoices or receipts. I've got copies of them. That's handy. Cool, and then we can just hit approve. So that's pretty straightforward. And then once that's paid, or see this doesn't make it paid, you've still got to go into your banking and pay it. So once that's paid, then you just mark it off. Another option you've got is that you've got the ability to email in a copy and create a bill from a copy. So if I'll just copy that, this is a unique email address for everyone. I'll forward that invoice for Fred back in. But same deal, delete out all the content on the email and just forward the PDF bill. So I'll forward that in. This will come through as a draft bill eventually. Takes a minute. This is only if you're not using HubDoc. If you're using HubDoc, then you'll have access to do this anyway. It doesn't work quite as well as HubDoc, so I suggest using HubDoc if you're doing a lot of bills. If you're not, it may not be worth using a new system, learning a new system. There we go. So this one's come through that I've just emailed. And as you can see, it's a Xero invoice. So Xero recognizes a lot of the places where things are. It doesn't know the contact, so we'll change that to here. We'll just change it to demo. And it's picked up the date, which matches our date here. It's picked up the due date, which I didn't set, but yeah, it's just the 19th there, so it's the same date, so that's fine. It's picked up the reference number, picked up the amount, which is the total amount. It hasn't picked up the line items, that's fine. We can just put them in. So we don't necessarily need, whoops. Don't necessarily need the lines. It depends on what you're doing with these as to whether you need the lines or not. And we can just choose the purchases. And there we go. So as you can see, these amounts here are tax. That amount there is the total. It's picked up that amount, which is fine, but because it's showing as tax exclusive here, it's added GST on top of that. So we just need to change that to tax inclusive to bring it back to the right amount. It wouldn't let you finalize it because of this total wouldn't match this total. So those two need to match for it to let you approve it. Cool. So then you can just hit approve. So that's pretty straightforward. Like some things come through better than others. So like a power bill or something where things are in weird places and not nicely laid out like a traditional sort of looking invoice. It won't necessarily pick up the right bits, but if it's say a Xero formatted invoice, it will pick up quite a few of the bits. So that could save some time. So once again, if you go into your bills to pay, click this create bill from email, this is your unique email address. If you need it, I would suggest copying it and saving it as an address in your emails. Or once you get used to it, you can just start typing bills and it should come up with this horrible looking email address. But I guess they have to do it like that to make them all unique. Cool. So in the same vein as invoicing, credit notes are here. So you can just add a credit note directly, or you can add it to a bill that you've already approved. So you can see on the end there, those invoices, that those attachments that are there have got those little file symbols on them. The demo company. So in here you can do add a credit note. So if they email you and were like, right, we can't send you all those golf balls, we can only send you, 10. You can thus ideally send you a credit note and you attach it to this invoice here for the amount. Cool. Alrighty. The other thing you've got in your bills is you've got the ability to add this planned date. So if you've got something right, you're like, right, that one's coming out by direct debit on the 6th, so we'll put that there. Like, right, I need to set up a payment for that. I need to set up a payment for that. Yep, that's a direct debit. So it's a good idea to just keep an eye on this. And if you do know things you've already set up a payment for, put the date, even if it's the same date as the due date. That's one of the things that I do is if I keep my bills and I make sure that I know that, right, okay, that one I know is a direct debit, so I'll set that date. So I know that I don't have to do anything more, it's done. And then I'll go through and like on the 20th, I'll be like, all right, I'll set up these 3 bills to be paid. So I put the date, the 20th there. And then if I get another bill in the meantime, forward that in and get it there and it doesn't have a payment date, I know that I need to go in and set up a payment for that in my internet banking. So it's just a good idea to keep on top, and also prevents you from double paying things, which does happen. So you don't want to miss something or you don't want to double pay it. So just another trick you can use to keep on top of your payments. Then it also gives you a schedule up here. It builds up a schedule. So if we say the 20th of October, it'll add that on there. We'll check these on the 20th. So it gives you a bit of an idea of when where your cash is going when. You can go, right, okay, so those are the dates that I've got to pay. I need that much in the account on that date. So you could potentially go and set up a transfer from a savings account if you needed to for that date to make sure that there's enough in there to pay all those bills. So a few tricks to manage the cash there. All right. You've got all your contacts are listed in here. So that's your contacts for invoicing and for bills. And all the contacts that you've just manually put in on your bank rec screen. So you can see these ones don't have any details for them. So they've probably just been typed in on the bank rec screen. Whereas these ones have got more details. So you can see they've got, amounts owing, things like that. This one's got you owe them money and they owe you money. So it's obviously a mutual in and out. And some of these ones have got overdues. The little red symbol there. It's Fred. He owes us $8 grand. So within your contacts, you've got, we'll go through Fred. We were in there before, but so there's a detailed summary of the activity for Fred, and then credit notes, everything that's gone through as that contact name. All the active things, so things that are either owing or you owe, will sit up in the top, and then all the activity will sit in the back, in the bottom there. This will be more detailed if you've got more information in there. You can have groups of contacts. You can merge it. So if you had Fred Smith and Fred Smith's, where you'd accidentally put an S on the end or something, and they were actually the same person, you could merge them together so it would all sit under the same one. You could send a statement from here. If they're like, oh, can you give me a summary of what I owe? You can send them a statement. And here, so you've got quite a lot of detail you can keep on in each person. So you could have an account number if you needed a reference number of some sort, the primary person. So this, even if it is the same person, it's a good idea to put it in, because then it means that when you send them email, it says, "Hi, Fred," or, you know, something like that. You can add in another person if you have got a couple of contacts. So you've got, you know, a husband and wife, and the husband does the orders and wants to see the invoice, and the wife pays the bills, so she needs the invoice. So you can send things to both of them. You can add phone numbers, website, NZBN, etc. in here. Addresses. You can add a billing and a delivery address, so that's handy. And then your financial details. So if you were to do batch payments, which I'll go through in a minute, this is where you'd store their bank account number, name, particulars, etc. And then here's those sales defaults and things like that. So sales, credit limit, sales account. So that go to sales, 20 for the following. Amounts are inclusive, exclusive. So use organization settings will be pretty standard for that. Discount, if this was a customer that always got a discount. So they were, you know, a family member or a friend or something, and you know, always give your mates a discount. So you can just keep that in there, so that any time an invoice was raised against them, that would show there. The credit limit amount. And then once you've put something in there, you can tick the top of your invoices. If they were always using a standard set branding theme that you wanted to choose for your invoicing, you can choose that there. And there's your tracking category there. Cool. And then same with the purchases, just a little bit less detail. Cool. So we'll quickly go through batch payments. So batch payments is where if you had, say, 20 bills that you had to pay regularly on the 20th, or it's generally used for bills that are due on the same date, because it creates a file that you can upload into your internet banking that will pay all those bills on that date. So if you've got big outgoings on, you know, set dates, it's a good idea to make it quicker, basically. If you've got the right set of internet banking, so you'd need business banking generally. Some banks better than others, so it just depends on your bank. So yeah, let me know if you need a bit of help around that, but I'll show you how to do it. So if we go into our bills, ideally you would set up all the bank account numbers in the back end first. So right, we go awaiting payment, like due date, we can sort of go due date. Right, we've got all these due on the 22nd. So that one, two due on the 22nd. We'll just pick those two then. And then you've got batch payment. So 2 items to pay. Yep, that's cool. Okay. So you choose your payment date. So that's the date it's going to come out of your bank. That was the 22nd. Choose the bank account. So this is generally going to be your main business bank account. So you could call it August creditors, something like that. So it'll need a bank account number. I'll just copy this one up. Particular, so that's what they're going to see on their side. So this is going to be so let's just go demo. You could copy this reference down there, or you could just say, you know, statement, something like that, if you're paying on a statement. So ideally, so like if you were say a trade and you were getting lots of you know, twice a weekly or something like that bills from, say, ITM, you might pay on a statement. So you'd be like, right, we've got our August statement, it's, you know, $7,500. We tick off all the, you know, all the August bills in our bills to pay. You could do a sort, you could do a batch payment, pay them all off in one go, and make sure that the amount on your due there matches your invoice. If it doesn't, you might have something wrong. So this is a good way to just do a lump sum payment, collect all the invoice data, but pay it all off in one go, rather than having to go through and tick them all on the, when you pay them, you can just pay them in one lump sum this way. Cool. And then you can just hit make payments. So this will basically mark all those invoices as paid in Xero, and it will create a spend money transaction, or a payment transaction in your internet banking, waiting in your Xero, waiting to be matched to the bank feed. So from here you export the batch file. So that gives you, it's okay, so it won't let you do it if it's not right. So obviously you've got to get all your data in there correctly first, but once it's all set up, it's pretty straightforward. It'll give you, I think it's a CX9 or CV9 or something file that then you can upload into your internet banking. That's the right type of file format anyway. But if you want to do that, then just give me, we'll walk through it. We can walk through it together. Cool. So if you've got it wrong or done something not quite right, then that's where you need to just hit remove and redo, and that will just clear it all back to nothing, and you can start again. Because once you've done that, if you get the wrong date or something like that, it will appear like this. It will also affect your GST if you're on payments basis. So Xero will assume that you've paid that on that date. And if you do it and then do it somehow, mark it off a different way, it will double count your GST and things like that. So just go carefully with those, but yeah, they can save a lot of time when you know what you're doing. So, but yeah, if you want a separate quick walkthrough, let me know. Alrighty. The only other thing I was going to quickly go through, I think I've covered all the things on the cool. So the only other thing I was going to go through quickly was how to split a payment. Cool. So say this payment here was for, well, it's for 2 invoices. That's convenient. So that's $4.5 grand that they've paid you, but it's for 195 and 210, 2 different invoices. So that one's quite nice and tidy. So we just go tick, tick, it all goes nice and green, and we go reconcile. So that's if someone's paid you for two or multiple invoices in one payment. So you can tick off all the payments that you're looking for, all the invoices that you're looking for, and hit OK. If they've given you a part payment, so let's pretend this is a part payment. It may actually be because it says deposit. So we hit match. Let's just see. Nope. I don't know what the one is, but we'll just clear that. Right, so let's just pretend this $2,000 is a deposit from Fred. Okay, so he owes us, nearly $8 grand. So we go, right, this is his deposit. So we go tick, and of course it's not going to let us match it because it's totally different amount from what he actually owes us. So from here we just hit split, and it will default to the $2,000, and it will show put the $2,000 off the 7,900, and we've got 5,900 left. And you go, yep, that's cool. That's exactly what I want to do. So then you hit split. Then it shows that that'll clear off that amount, and that amount will be left. So then you can hit reconcile. Just gave us an error for the date, so that's fine. So that's sort of how you do it if you get a part payment. Those are the main things. If you end up with a slight variance, is the other thing that might happen. So let's do this one. So we'll say this guy's paying this amount. This one, do we have any more? City limousines. We got 169. I'll just take one of those off. Right, so say we're up by 150. So it wouldn't generally be this much. It might be 10 cents or something like that, but we'll just use this as an example. So if you're out by say 10 cents, you're like, if you do a minor adjustment, it will create a rounding code that sits on your balance sheet that you don't really want. So I generally just do it as a bank fee. Create the contact. So rounding or slight overpay or underpay or something like that. If it's an amount that you're not going to worry about, you know, marking off against future invoices or clearing, you know, or paying them back or anything like that. It's just generally for just small amounts. So then you'd put it back against, I'll generally put it back against the account that it relates to. So say these are all sales, I'll just put it back against sales. If you're not sure, just chuck it against, you know, bank fees or something. That's nothing matter. Purchases. But you know, this we're only talking sort of up to $5. So, and then you just type the amount in. If it doubles here, you may need to put a negative. I never know which way it's going to go, so I just type it and see what happens. So sometimes you may need to put a negative in there if it's depending on it's a bit over or under. Alrighty, and then we can just hit reconcile. That basically creates another separate line. All right. And one other thing is if you do sort of make a mistake and you're like, oh, I matched that against the wrong thing, or you know, whatever, just in this account transaction, so this is the Xero transaction. So this will be what Xero thinks it is, and this will generally be where the slight error is. You can just hit remove and redo and start again. It's not gonna, if it's a batch payment, it'll delete it and you'll have to start again. Otherwise it will just send it back to here. So I don't recommend using unreconcile if you come across that, because that will just break the link between the Xero and the bank transaction, and it will mean that your bank might go out of balance. I generally just remove and redo, and that'll get rid of the transaction in Xero, and you can start again. Otherwise, if there's any, I'll just double check if we've got any questions. Doesn't look like we've got any questions today. So, alrighty. As per, if you have any questions, flick them through afterwards. If you're watching this recording later, just flick me through an email and I'll get back to you with the answers. If you need any more detailed one-on-one, let me know and we'll go from there. Otherwise, go play in the demo company. You can't break it. You can just, you know, have a go at creating batch payment or whatever. It's yeah, you're not going to break anything, so go for gold. And everyone have a great day, and we will see you at the next webinar. Thanks for coming. Bye.